like all frameworks, I think a simplification.
Yeah.
We have a content piece every year called the UX Research Tools Map. It's one of our biggest pieces. I'm sure many of you have seen it, and it's very complex, right? And I
Mhm.
think that's because there is a lot of complexity in the way people do research, and therefore the way people build tools for research. My framework is a little bit simpler, I think, and I really think of it as three layers. You have the testing tools. So that's a tool used to actually conduct the research. Um, I tend to think of that as split up by methodologies.
Mhm.
So, you might have a different tool for a survey, from a usability test, from a moderated interview, diary study. And then there's the participant layer. That's, where I think we play. And I think of that as split up, as you would suspect, the same way our products are split up, which is recruitment and participant management. And then you have, I think, Marvin, where you all play, or where Marvin plays, which is the insight repository kind of layer of the stack, or the insights layer broadly.
Mhm.
Um, so that's generally how I think of the framework, and I think that there's different ways to look at it, but that's worked well for me. It's moving so fast, right? So I think your layer, like the insights layer, I think is the most kind of ripe for AI. I feel like organizing
100%.
insights, organizing these texts and images and videos and all of this qualitative data, and being able to pull it out fast, being able to have the right interfaces to do that. To me, especially like the LLMs, when you talk about AI with LLMs, like to me that like you have to be thinking about AI when you're building there, which you all are, and so I assume as I know you agree with. But to me, like of the three layers that I laid out in my framework, by far the most kind of um, AI is the most important for that layer, and the most exciting, I think. Jumping to the testing tool layer, I think what we're seeing is two things. One is I think most of the kind of tools there are releasing some AI features. I think these are kind of the same sort of features you're seeing across a lot of SaaS, things like automatic summaries, things like type ahead, things that I think do add value to the end user, but it feels like more like, hey, we're trying to understand, we're dipping our toes in AI to some extent here. We're trying to learn, and then I'm sure there will be bigger things coming after that, but that's kind of like the first iteration. The other thing we're seeing in the testing tool layer, and I think it's an argument of its own layer, or not part of the testing tool layer, or a whole new layer, is kind of this almost honestly an explosion of AI moderated tools, where there are tools where there's an AI agent, AI bot doing the moderation for research. And I think over just the past month or two, I've chatted with, I would say close to 10 of these companies. And, um, their promise or their kind of pitch is you can kind of have the breadth of a survey and the depth of an interview, right? I think, that kind of concept there. Um, I think, I think it's interesting. I haven't used them. I can't speak myself on the quality, but there's definitely a lot of them being built right now. Anecdotally, I think we've heard some. I've seen some positive things on LinkedIn about them, but none of them have really like taken off. Right, they're all like very, very much in the early startup stages. But what we're doing is using AI behind the scenes to help really power our matching algorithm. So one of our differentiators, and the reason I think we've had the success we have, is we have all of these participants, and then people launch projects, and it's really important to match the right participant with the right project, because if participants are applying to projects and not getting selected, they're just gonna leave. So for a long time we've been using machine learning to help kind of match the right participants with the project.
Christine, what are the best approaches to gaining executive buy-in from leaders who are skeptical of research or you think have a different agenda? Wow, what an explosive question to pick up.
Yeah, I think honestly we could have had a whole conversation on this. Is kind of a topic we didn't really get to in general, but
Right.
I think one thing we're trying to work on at User Interviews to kind of help the broader community here, that we're lacking a little bit as the community, is really showing the ROI of research.
ROI. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Like if you look at a marketing or sales tool, sometimes it's very, even me as CEO, it's easier to kind of open the checkbook for them, because you can kind of say, okay, this is going to get you this many leads, which is
With
going to get
money.
you
Yeah.
this, and hey, okay, it's going to be
Yeah.
ROI positive. And I think, so I think as an industry, we really need to like focus on kind of, especially in this new market that we've had over the past, year and a half, 2 years here, showing the ROI of research and then showing that business impact. And we think there's a few, just kind of, really high level. We kind of think of it as kind of like three different pillars. One is, if you think about research spend compared to engineering spend, it's small, right? And
Mhm.
that actually works in our benefit in the sense of we say, look, like, if X% of engineering is going to failed products or failed launches, if we did research on those, think about how much we'd save with those engineering resources.
Yeah.
The second is if you just think about a better customer experience, and you can really put numbers here with he
Mm.
decreased customer support tickets, right? Things like that. And hopefully increase retention. And then if you can do anything around conversion rates to increase revenue, increase sales throughput. So that's kind of how we're thinking, but it is hard. I think it takes a level of work to tag like what did our research lead to? Who used our research? What
Yeah.
did not use research? And how can we look at the difference there? But I think ROI
Yeah.
and business impact of research, it's very top of mind for us at User Interviews. I think we'll be trying to release some things around that and some templates to help everybody kind of bring it up to the broader orgs internally. There was a lot of companies that didn't have research in-house, and there was people started bringing in individual researchers. There was all this content about them, the first researcher, like building up the research practice. We then saw kind of like an increase in team size for researchers as people started seeing the value of research. We then saw this kind of explosion of democratization of research, which was primarily PMs and designers doing research as well as kind of full-time UX researchers. I think what we saw where we're at more recently is a little bit of a response to that, where I don't think democratization's no one's putting the genie back in the bottle. I think like that's in my opinion, like but I think people have realized that like as there was this kind of like increase in democratization, there was people doing research in different ways, sometimes a lack of compliance, sometimes the people doing it were doing it in ways that was a little harder for them because they didn't know the tool stack that existed already. No tracking of who's getting reached out to, people getting like pinged too often, a lot of things like that. So I think there was this, and I think that really led to this increase in research operations and the rise of research ops, which was saying like, okay, look, like we know there's going to be a lot of people doing research, but it can't just be the Wild West here. We need to build some guardrails. We should centralize the tooling. So I think when you think about your tool stack, what that means is the tools themselves need to almost think about having multiple user types, right? Where, okay, we were thinking about like this research ops persona as this admin who's setting, guardrails and setting best practices. And then you kind of have these, other people doing research all the time. They're full-time researchers, so they can get really into the weeds and have all of this flexibility. And then you have people who might be doing research once a quarter or twice a year or something like that. So their experience needs to be very streamlined, and they might have less options and less functionality. So I think there's actually, I would say that the research ops as a response to democratization, in my opinion, has actually led to more centralizing research tools where it's less, different teams buying different research tools, but also those tools having to respond and realize, look, there's different people using us in different ways, and we need to make sure our tool can kind of be flexible for some people and less flexible, but potentially more efficient for other people.